welcome to the No State Project. I'm your host, Mark Stevens, author of Government Indicted. My website, of course, is markstevens.net. Glad to be with you here from the fortified compound in California. Yes, it is San Bernardino, so I do apologize for the slight dip in the audio quality, but the content nonetheless will always be spectacular as usual. If you want to join me on the big show, though I do not take callers usually in the first segment. Last week was different. We had an actual scheduled guest, so I had a good time talking with an old friend, Alex Knight III. So if you haven't heard that, definitely go to markstevens.net and get it off of the archives there. Let's see. A lot of stuff to get to today. If you want to join me, like I just mentioned, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. And the passcode is 2020 with the pound sign or 2020 with the hashtag. You can also contact me on Skype at FrankRizzo3. You can join me on the show also on Skype at FrankRizzo3, but instant message me first. And then I can also put you into that there No State Project Skype chat that I spoke so much about on the Wednesday broadcast. It is the, of course, January 6th, and probably I don't have as much time on a live broadcast on Wednesday, so maybe it would, I don't know, it's probably be more appropriate there. Well, no, actually, I think it's 6, it's right there in the middle, but January 9th, 1944, very significant date. We got to remember this guy's birthday. Had a profound influence on my life. Really, most males interested in guitar playing or are interested in guitar playing because of listening to Mr. James Patrick Page. Of course, his birthday is January 9th. In fact, one of the greatest recorded concerts ever was on his birthday in 1970 when Led Zeppelin, I know I've said this before, but when they played, oh my gosh, when they played the Royal Albert Hall on Page's birthday in 1970, the musical gods were smiling that day, my friends. Anybody who doubts this, I'll of course have to remember to include that in the show notes at markstevens.net when we post the podcast today. From the opening, you got a groove. Wow, you knew you were in for something special, and they certainly delivered. Just an unbelievably tight show. Huge influence on me. I don't remember the first song I heard from Led Zeppelin. It was probably Whole Lotta Love, and that break just absolutely floored me. So to be 10 years old and hearing that for the first time, like, oh my gosh, unbelievable. And then hearing something like the way Page played on that first album, good Lord. I Can't Quit You, Babe. Wow. Yeah, a lot of other people have most blues bands have covered that. Most blues rock bands have covered I Can't Quit You, Babe. I've heard some really good versions of that. But I've got to give the nod to Jimmy Page on that one. Absolutely outstanding. And that's saying something because Mick Taylor does a fantastic job of that with the Blues Breakers, but yeah, not with the intensity that Page played with. And I know some people may say he's sloppy, but hey, heroin does that. But when you listen to that show from 1970, to say that that's sloppy, and I think of some of the people that are actually saying things like that Page is sloppy, even if he was a little sloppy compared to someone like John McLaughlin. The fact is, the man ranks right in the top 3, at least, of the most influential guitar players ever. I know for myself, I'm still in awe of the man's playing, and a big reason why I wanted to play guitar was, I know I'm like one of 500 million people, but hey, that's the influence that the man had. And you can say whatever you want, like with Chuck Berry. And that may have had to do with taking other people's songs and not giving them credit for it. That may have more to do with the record company. I don't know. Regardless, the man was a huge influence and and just an improvising monster. Which is another reason why I really enjoyed Jimmy Page's playing so much, because a lot of stuff just became known with that song, riffs and licks, but still able to improvise. And yes, I know a lot of stuff was repeated, but listen to the Royal Albert Hall recording of Dazed and Confused, which is, I think, 14 minutes long, which is almost twice as long, if not more than twice as long as the studio version. But you watch, the song remains the same. It's 28 damn minutes. And the last, I would imagine that the last 12 minutes of the song is Page, just killing it. So, remember, Jimmy Page, James Patrick Page. And his mother is Irish, so that's another reason why I probably appreciate his music so much. But if you haven't heard the Royal Albert Hall show, do it today after the big show. You will not be disappointed. And if you're one of these people who's never heard of Led Zeppelin before, you're in for a treat, because it doesn't get much better than that. But also some sad news too. Jerry Van Dyke, who is, of course, Dick Van Dyke's brother, has passed away today at the age of 86. So, if you haven't seen the Dick Van Dyke Show, he was on a few times, and that's where he got his start. And of course, he was on Coach, so where Patrick Starr got his start. Oh, sad to hear about that. Rest in peace. And I don't know why. I don't know if this is a serious comment or not, but on my last video, prepping for court, defend yourself and get tickets kicked out. That was the Wednesday broadcast. I just uploaded the HD video a couple days ago, and actually did pretty good with the time. I actually got it on Thursday. So somebody's saying here, Axeman is. I don't know if it's serious or not. It's funny either way. Although I don't know if it's serious. It's kind of sad. Poor Mark has trouble with the truth. It's not all the Jews, but 75% of the bankers and other elites are Jewish. It's fact, Mark. Face it. Well, having a lot of people who are Jewish in a particular field does not necessarily add up to a conspiracy, a concerted effort that's based on from the Jews. So no, worship of Israel, refusing to face reality of Jewish power. I don't know. I think I've said a number of times that the Jewish government is a terrorist organization. Just one of the more violent ones. So I don't think I'm worshiping Israel. I think that that government should be put out of business. It's like every single government should be put out of business. So refusal to face reality of Jewish power. Okay. And it's more circumstantial evidence you are a Mason. So we've got the Mason bit already. That's circumstantial evidence I'm a Mason because I think the State of Israel is a terrorist organization and should be put out of business. Yeah. Yeah, I know that was. Again, it's a YouTube comment, and you got to take it for what it is. I mean, it's kind of silly, but hey, what do you do? Circumstantial evidence, I'm a Mason. I don't think you understand what circumstantial evidence means. And you've got to get your facts right. So if you're going to say that I worship Israel, well, you're dead wrong about that. Absolutely. It's just like this nonsense that if you say something about a Republican, you're automatically a Democrat, or if you say something about the Democrats, that you're automatically a Republican, and it's that black and white thinking that keeps us where we are. I'm going to turn on the phone. I'll get to the caller line. So if you want to join me, 218-632-9399 with the passcode being 2020. I will be back with your calls in just a moment. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm Mark Stevens, author of Government Indicted, a whole model for how to effectively defend yourself against these tyrants calling themselves government. Because, of course, there is no government, there is no state, there are no citizens. They are all demonstrably fictions. And just part of the reification process necessary to get people to set aside their moral beliefs, their morality, which I want to talk about. I don't understand and get this, and I don't agree that morality is subjective, that everyone has their own morality, or that even a principle such as do no harm is not rooted in reality, that there's no objective way to measure that or to identify that. And I don't think that is correct at all, and I think that there is absolutely scientific evidence, but we'll get to that. Because I don't get I just can't I don't get that. Well, Jamal, don't go trying to throw your morality down on me. Yeah, that I just don't I don't get it. Especially I don't get it. But we'll talk about that more later. But he's been on the show before, who's actually proof of the effectiveness of the principles in the model in Government Indicted, who has replicated the work that I've done and others have done in Canada. He's in Calgary, I believe, which is a lot damn colder there right now than it is here in the fortified compound in California. But welcome back to the show, Jermaine.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, no audio problems. I think we're doing pretty good to start with.
Yeah, it is cold in Calgary, but you know what's even colder? Revelstoke, which is where I was last week, enjoying a little ski vacation for the New Year's.
Can you say that again?
I said Calgary's cold, but so is Revelstoke. That's where I was last week on New Year's. I went there skiing, and there was probably, 4 feet of snow everywhere.
Jeez, I'm not familiar with the area, so especially if it's that cold, I don't. I wouldn't know. But hey, I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, it was great, man.
So you, I know there were some things that you had mentioned on the chat that. Now look, I get a lot of stuff, so if you sent this to me, I don't know. Do you have what this judge said to you? Do you have that audio? Is there audio or a transcript of that?
Yeah, Judge Gates.
Well, what's his first name?
I don't know his first name. I could find out, but it was Judge Gates. And yeah, he said straight up to my face when I asked him the question of jurisdiction, he said, I have jurisdiction over you and I don't need evidence.
Wow.
I quote, for his words verbatim. And yes, I do have the audio. I could probably transfer it from my phone somehow over to Audacity, and then I'll try to share that with you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I would absolutely. Now, is there an issue? I mean, could this put you in any kind of line of fire?
I don't think so. I mean, it's pretty much done. I mean, they've actually stopped their attack against me, but right now I'm going through an appeal because, although I did get almost 20 charges thrown out, they still did tack me on with a couple of them. One was the obstruction with the peace officer, and the other one was, something along that line, something to do with the obstruction of justice or something like that, maybe. And I think they did this because they have to. I mean, if they threw me in jail for 2 months and then everything else got thrown out and they have no convictions, I mean, I think they have to do that to kind of protect themselves. Not like I'm going to go, try and sue them or anything like that. I'd rather just leave it alone. But I think they probably did that because literally they couldn't validate what they were saying. They couldn't show jurisdiction after 2 years, and they eventually ended up throwing out the last charges. I think there were 17 in total. Criminal charges. These are mostly criminal charges. Failure to comply, failure to show up for fingerprinting, failure to live where approved by a probation officer, failure to show up to probation. A whole bunch of them, a whole rack of criminal charges.
Boy, you are a bad boy.
Yeah, I know.
So
I was have a conversation with somebody in the Skype chat, and they were going on how maybe it's all my fault. They're giving that whole argument that the rape victim is somehow at fault because they're wearing a tight skirt. And I was trying to use the Socratic method to help show this individual. I won't name them. Matter of fact, I don't know their name. But try to use the Socratic method to show them that, hey, there is such thing as an aggressor and a victim, and there is such thing as bad things happening to good people. But yeah, they didn't quite get it.
Yeah, there seems to be a line of reasoning, if you can call it that there, and I don't get this, where they say there is no victim, there's just victim mentality. And I got to tell you, there are an awful lot of people who were killed by the German government. I mean, there's video. There's pictures. They took the teeth out of their mouth after they were dead. I mean, they're not victims. You're going to talk about how the United States and the British Army firebombed Dresden, Germany. You're going to tell me there were no victims there? No, it's just their mentality. They were incinerated. So I don't understand what the basis of that is. I know. I like to think it has to do with some kind of sense of compassion, trying to empower people. Like, don't accept a victim mentality. But you're right. There are victims. There are aggressors, and there are victims. I mean, what do you do? What do you say to the family of the victims of let's say a homicide? It was like, be a good Republican. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Rugged individualism. Don't see them as victims. Yeah. Move on. No, they are victims. It's not a matter of being a weak-kneed libtard. To acknowledge that there are aggressors and victims. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of us have been discussing how we should do some screening of the Skype chat. Like, I remember when I first joined, I think I had to talk to you personally before I ever got into a chat. So I think we should start that again. There should not be a link where people can just go to your website and join the Skype chat. There should be some sort of screening process there, whether it's you or one of us who's been around for a while, just to at least greet the people that are coming, that are new, say, hey, what's your name? What's your issue? Before we start dropping these people in. And that way we can weed out certain people that might be have been previously banned and decided to go make another account and rejoin, and they just come in and they're disturbing, and they come in, they're adversarial, and they just want to argue. That's really counterproductive. And, a lot of us have been discussing that lately.
Yeah, I ran out of time yesterday because I'm in California right now, and I'm going to pull that off the website today. I think it's a great idea. Let me mute you up. We're up against the break. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on the LRN.FM. The Liberty Radio Network for 3, that's right, damn it, 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here every Saturday from 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. You want to join me, it's 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network. Glad to be with you. Always glad to be here every Saturday from 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time on the Liberty Radio Network for these 3 hours of Anarchy Radio. Anarchy meaning no rulers, not no rules. The rules being do no harm. We'll talk more later about the morality and how there is an objective reality to that, an objective element to that. But I want to bring back, we're talking with Jermaine from Calgary, and you mentioned about the chat. And, it's a good point because it sucks that the link is actually out there. Maybe we can change the link, but you can always look that up. But you can't necessarily join automatically anymore once I pull that link off of the website. It used to be that every time somebody contacted me, that they would have to go to Frank Rizzo 3, and then I would put them into the chat. And I guess it was a way to look. It just turned out to be bad. Because we have what we have now, where it can be very disruptive, and that's because I wanted more people to participate. That wasn't the way to do it, though. I'm pretty certain now that was not the way to do it. So we learn, and I will definitely be pulling that link off of the site today. I don't. Do you know? Can you change the link?
I have no clue. I'm just getting started with all the design. So I don't know.
Okay. A reply affidavit. So that's if you're replying to a motion and replying to
Hello? I get dropped.
I don't know how that keeps happening. Every time Kerry calls, it comes in. His line comes in unmuted. So that's the beauty. So if you watch the video, the podcast of the last of the Wednesday show, I was able to cut all that stuff out. So I could do the same thing with this here show. But we were talking. We're talking about the whether we can change that link, and I don't know. That's something I'm going to have to look up. And you guys who are in the chat right now, if you wanted to maybe do a search for that, that would be pretty cool. So, but we are going to be changing that. If you want to get into the chat, it's going to be like when I say on the show. You got to contact me at FrankRizzle3. I will put you into the chat. Other people can add you to the chat, but it's hopefully going to be people that know that you're there to help, or you're there to get help. You're not there just to be disruptive and maybe call me a cuck fag or something like that. Or maybe they'll bring back that. Oh, and that's another thing. I was called a hook-nosed Jew as well as a cuck fag a while back.
Hey, Mark, am I muted?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I was muted. I heard something else come over the line, some recording, and I was like, what?
Well, that was Kerry, and that's why I was mentioning. Every time he calls, he comes in unmuted. So I have no idea why that's happening, but he's muted up now, so it's not a problem.
Okay. So yeah, I wanted to talk about appeals and stuff because I just filed this memorandum yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, Friday. And so they actually accepted my paperwork because I don't know if you're aware, but they were trying to stop any of my filings from coming in. Right. Because we spoke before, and they were saying that, okay, no, we're not going to accept this motion. It has to be an affidavit form. So you recommended, okay, do it in an affidavit. So I did. I got it notarized and everything. And then a couple weeks after that, the attorney I was using, his name, maybe I won't say his name, but the attorney I was using, he told me that he got a message or he got a letter from the Chief Justice Tyndale of the Alberta courts that he was not to notarize anything for me, that my documents did not fit the Evidence Act of Canada and some other unknown act. And he was to sign that letter and send it back saying that he would not notarize anything for me, otherwise he could lose his license. Now, I tried to get that letter. I did a Freedom of Information Act request to the court. I filed it and everything, sent it to Tyndale. And so a few weeks later, Tyndale responded, and he completely denied that this communication went on. So somebody's lying.
Wow.
Now, yesterday I also got a letter from the, hold on, let me grab it. Yeah, the Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner of Alberta. Now, they said, yes, you do have the right to Freedom of Information Act. You can request information of the government that they're holding about you. But guess what they say? We don't have jurisdiction in this matter, and we cannot help you to get this information that you're requesting.
I thought they always had jurisdiction, and they don't need evidence.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's so convenient that they have jurisdiction when they want to rape you and take your property, damage you, and all this nonsense. But when it comes to your personal freedoms and liberties and just outright moral principle, all of a sudden they don't have jurisdiction and they can't help you.
Yeah, it's the same thing too when you go, let's say, on a petition for a writ, and they'll turn around and say they don't have jurisdiction. And like, wait a minute, I thought you had jurisdiction of every single complaint. Yeah, see, the rules are different when you try to apply them to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said
anybody who's new, you can come in. I didn't know that we could do this. you can come in to the Skype chat. We did this to write the memorandum. I had written my own memorandum, and it was okay, but I shared it with some people in the Skype chat, and we are able to, with Google Docs, the app it's called? Yeah, Google Docs. We're able to have everybody who's in that Skype chat see the document and actually make comments on your document. And you can literally accept if you want to accept their change or whatever, and you guys can brainstorm. And we just literally group constructed this document, and it was very good. It includes case law and everything. And if anybody wants this document, just contact me somehow through the Skype chat or whatever, and you can use it for your study material. It's very good. But anybody who's new and you need to, if you're writing an affidavit for court or whatever it is, the resources are here, man. There's people here that genuinely want to help. And we've got this technology that we can help each other. And there's no reason to feel that, how I felt when I was first starting out, oh, my God, I'm the only person who wants to challenge government, right? When I was sitting there in court and everybody's just like, I'm guilty. And then I come up here and I'm like, what evidence do you have? And sure. I felt really isolated. But no, the chat's phenomenal. And so I continuously, every time I'm on the radio show, I encourage people to come in, just leave your ego outside of the chat. Come in, hear what we have to say, and we can brainstorm and try and help you.
Yeah, the Google Docs. Yes, you have to have a Google account, but hey, they got all your personal information now anyway. So, but it is an excellent way to help, and that's the first I've heard. I mean, I've used it obviously for a number of years to help people when they'll post something there, and it's easy to like you're saying, to make comments, but to have a bunch of people help, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Did you hear that notification? Dang it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nothing. I'm not used to using this computer to do the podcast, so I have to close out one of my programs so I don't get those stupid notifications, because it'll always play the notification I don't want, but it will never play the one that I actually program in. So that's Thunderbird. So well, great. And hopefully more people will do something like that and have and they'll continue being able to help people, because that's what it's about. So I think by taking the link off the website and having people contact me first regarding the chat room and wanting to get in, then there's less chance of someone being just trolling. So I got to mute you back up. We're up against the break. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. And if you want to get into the No State Project Skype chat because you need to do some role playing, which you should, then just contact me at FrankRizzo3 and I can throw you in there. And we'll be back with your calls in just a moment. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. You're listening to the live edition for January 6th. Is it the 6th? Yeah, January 6th, 2018. Glad to be with you. We're talking with Jermaine from Calgary. And so welcome back, Jermaine.
Yeah, hey, Mark.
Yeah, all right. So to get back, so people were helping with the Google Docs. So, I think that's fantastic. I do want to address, though, the issue of what do you do when a judge snaps at you and says, I have jurisdiction and I don't need evidence? How did you handle that?
I don't recall. I have to check the transcript. That was during a bail escheatment, I think it was. So it ended up getting adjourned anyways, but since it was during a bail escheatment, I was just asking the question of jurisdiction to try and get that bail money back, which was eventually returned to me anyways. But it was just good to get this judge to show what is going on in those courts, the fact that they are just presuming jurisdiction, and he is prosecuting from the bench and covering for the prosecution. And he would just blatantly say something like that to my face. Like, I have jurisdiction over you and I don't need any evidence. This is absurd. And I thought about filing a complaint against him. I don't usually complain, but in this scenario, I mean, that's a big thing for him to do that. I'm asking the prosecution, not him. I'm asking the prosecution, what evidence do you have that there's any jurisdiction over me and that you can seize this bail money, this extortion fee, right? And then the Judge Gates steps in and says this thing from his face. I have jurisdiction over you and I don't need any evidence. It was shocking. It was. And I do have it in audio recording. I don't remember what my response was. I think I just let it go at that point, and because I knew it was being adjourned anyways. And eventually the bail was returned to me. It came back. So.
Well, not to split hairs, I don't like to give them any, so much credit as you did by saying that they were presuming the prosecutions, that they were just presuming jurisdiction. I think they, when you make a statement like that, I don't need evidence, you're not presuming. You're just being a douchebag. You're being a crook. Usually a presumption is based on something. So this guy's just this Judge Gates. He's a crook. I would certainly encourage you to file complaints, and if they do have self-insurance against government employees, covering government employees up there in Calgary, I certainly would pursue that also, and I would bring that up at one of their, let's say if they do have, open meetings like city council type things like they do here, I would do that. I think for those listening who may encounter something like that, when the judge says, I don't need evidence, you certainly want to say objection, and I think a good objection would be objection. So if I understand correctly, arbitrary rulings, you make arbitrary decisions here, and that's consistent with due process.
Right.
Again, it's a leading question, of course, because you want to make sure as many questions as possible are leading questions, and so you give them that option. They don't like the word arbitrary. They think that they actually, at least on paper, in theory, that is a really bad thing, that due process requires that it not be arbitrary. So I know that there are certain critics, there's only a couple of them, that try to claim that basic principles of logic have no business in a courtroom. In its practical application, when it's a government attack against you, they don't like that kind of stuff as it applies to them, but they will certainly apply it to us.
Yeah, well, that's actually I did use that word in the first case where I was incarcerated and I did have to go to trial. I did use that word when he said when that judge, it was a different judge at this time, was saying that yes, there's jurisdiction, and I said, well, is that based on the prosecutor's evidence or your arbitrary opinion? And that was I think you're right. I think you're onto something, because after I asked him that question, like, he just completely stopped and he said, we need to have a recess. And when they came back from recess, he, what's the term? Sorry, I having a brain fart here. He recused himself. That's it.
No, that's right.
So I think you're onto something about that word arbitrary.
Well, if you look at their decisions and you know anything about the principle of justice and due process and what constitutes a fair hearing, it's just like due process requires at a bare minimum notice and opportunity to defend. That's basic common due process principle. I mean, whether it's the United States, Canada, or Australia, or England, anywhere the British common law system was forced on the people. And so following that is that the decisions of government agents should not be arbitrary and capricious. And so that's why I use that particular word, because I know it means something to them. And that is like saying that their mother is a whore. To say that their decision is arbitrary, they don't take that lightly. And I know I've used that as a trigger word myself in court. So we're definitely being more effective by using that particular word. Because, look, we're asking the leading question and we're trying to find out what the hell his decision is based on, which due process requires that his decision is based on the evidence that's before him. And that's why we ask the question like you did. Is that because you say so, or because the prosecution's evidence does? And to throw the word arbitrary in, yeah, that's a nice touch. Because, look, this is something critics and those who are skeptical of the work that we do here, I don't know where any of them have actually addressed this particular issue. They will turn around and they'll say they don't have to prove that. But then when you bring up the fact that it's an arbitrary decision, They've got no. All they can do is keep repeating their claim. Well, they don't have to prove it. Oh, they don't have to prove it. Yes. So why is the prosecutor able to then make arbitrary claims? And then again, we've said it so many times, Tremaine. Right? Do I get the same courtesy? Do I get to make claims against the prosecution without any evidentiary support? And we all know what the answer to that.
Of course, they say no. I've asked them that. I said, well, can I come in here and say that the laws don't apply because I said so, and then you guys will throw out the case? And obviously, she said no.
And the follow-up should be, and then
that double standard.
Yeah, but we need to always in court ask them why you and I say, look, why can't I do that? Do you really think is it fair to allow the prosecutor to do it and not to let me? Why don't I get to? Answer that. So, that's a big issue, unfortunately. And, well, it's a big issue, and it's fortunate it doesn't come up too often. It's very rare they actually say that in court. When we lose...
It's very rare that they say what?
Well, it's very rare for them to say what Judge Gates said and what the what the judge said before, to say that I have jurisdiction and I don't need evidence. Usually it's like, I have jurisdiction. Yeah. It's usually, I have jurisdiction, I made my decision, let's move on, and the next move is to put your ass in jail.
Yeah. I had another judge wave the criminal code around like a Bible, when I was asking, what authority are you drawing on? And she said she literally just picked up the Bible, not the Bible, sorry, a copy of the criminal code. But it just felt to me like I was back in the ages, how they probably went around towns with this Bible waving in the air saying, our Bible says this, and, therefore we're going to burn you at the stake. You know what I'm saying? It was no different. Like this witch hunt is still going on. That's how I see it.
Well, right, and it is I think it's a proper analogy or valid analogy to compare their code to the Bible because they have faith that it applies. They have no actual evidence. And admittedly, right, you've got Judge Gates on record. He doesn't need evidence. He wants you to take it as a matter of faith, okay? That if you don't believe as we believe, we do have a prison system, which unfortunately you found out firsthand that they will follow through. So it is faith-based. You have to just take this on and don't question it. And just like a religious institution, they don't want it questioned, and like it used to be, they will actually label you as crazy if you question their assertion and question their faith. We're up against the top of the hour break, so hold on. We'll be back here on the No State Project in just a few minutes, and I appreciate everyone's patience. We still have some ground to cover with Jermaine, so please just remain patient. We will get to everybody. We still have plenty of time. We're going into only the second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network. So hold tight. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network. Second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio. If we're not able to get to someone today, we always have a lot of content for the Wednesday commercial-free broadcast on my YouTube channel. And yes, I will be live this coming Wednesday. If you've missed any of the broadcasts, go to markstevens.net, and you can also get all of them on my No State Project YouTube channel. And I also post it on Facebook. I want to bring back Jermaine. We're talking with Jermaine in Calgary, who, common... Well, something we need to talk about to really help prep. So even if it doesn't come up, we need to discuss, like, when the judge or prosecutor is claiming that they can actually make a claim against you and they don't have to have evidence to prove that. So we need to definitely object and ask a leading question and bring out just how unfair it is. Because if they're not going to let you do it, not that we're looking to do that, Jermaine, we're just bringing out that there's an obvious double standard.
Yeah, that's right. No, I agree with you. I would respond with saying, could I do that? Could I say, you don't have jurisdiction and I don't need evidence to prove my point, right?
Yeah, I think it's better to trigger them in that I would say, I wouldn't say that, I would say, like I mentioned already, that do I get to make accusations or claims against the prosecution without evidence.
Yeah, that's worded a bit better. How about if they say, like, they quite often say we have jurisdiction to hear this case?
Well, the question is, does the prosecution have any evidence to show that your code applies, giving you any kind of jurisdiction over me?
Okay, all right, yeah.
You know, they try to split a hair and say, well, whether the court has territorial jurisdiction has nothing to do with you personally. It's just saying that the court has jurisdiction to hear cases over people in this area. But I'm here. You're claiming to have that territorial jurisdiction over me. That's why I don't.
That's the thing. That's what I told them. When I went to court, I told them because it's I assume that it's a public hearing. Anybody has jurisdiction to hear the case. I don't care if you're the judge, prosecutor, the clerk, or somebody sitting in the gallery. You can hear the case. I don't give a shit. But yeah, when you're claiming over me, that's a different story.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. That's why I don't believe that in its practical application, I don't think that there's any difference between territorial jurisdiction and personal jurisdiction. To me, they're one and the same. They're saying that they have jurisdiction over all the people in this particular area. No, so it's where is your evidence? And it's all based on, of course, the Constitution applying because you're physically in Calgary, which we know there's not any evidence. And that's the thing, too. How can somebody fault me and say that I'm a con man by continuously bringing up that there is no evidence? And I have, Robert Diab, and I have other prominent, lawyers who have repeated the same thing. There is no, and they actually go and say that none is required. I'm like, then how can you criticize me for pointing that out?
I know, Mark. Yeah, I've listened to all of your calls of shame. I remember when I first started, I had this job, a morning shift job, and I would listen to your calls of shame, and I'm shocked at what some of these agents will say. It's just like they don't realize what's coming out of their mouth when they say it, and how ridiculous it sounds to somebody who's analyzing what they're saying. Yeah,
someone who's not just accepting it as valid because of their position, And I guess one of my favorite ones was actually an IRS call, and I used this particular line in the thumbnail, not with the guy who actually said it, because of course I have no idea who they really are. Just a voice and a pseudonym. But I used the former commissioner because he made such a fool of himself a number of times. And so the line was, I asked him, do you have any evidence to actually support your claim of jurisdiction? And he fired back, says, well, do you? Okay. What? I'm looking to see if you have evidence to support your claim. Why? Oh my gosh. I think it was just something that was just said in the heat of the moment. He was so uncomfortable with the call because probably for the first time ever, somebody was actually challenging him in a serious way, and he realizes, I got nothing. So he's got to lash out at me. And I'm kind of used to that. But
yeah, they've tried that on in court too. They call it the reverse onus. They would say, when I ask them the question, they would say, "Oh, it's the onus is on you to show that you had insurance during the time of the offense, or you didn't." You know what I mean? They try and flip on you. That's called reverse onus. Am I correct?
Actually, no, I don't think that's. I think what they're doing is they're straw manning there, to be technical, because they're trying to get away from the actual issue that you're raising, and that the prosecution doesn't have any evidence to prove jurisdiction, because that is their burden of proof, and they're trying to turn around and raise a completely different issue. The burden is on you to show that you don't have that you had insurance. That's not the same issue that we're raising. It shouldn't be the issue you're raising.
No.
So why are they? Yeah. So why in the world would they? Yeah. Why would they raise that if your issue is evidence of jurisdiction? We're not going to discuss the merits until that jurisdictional hurdle has been met. They have no. Then to bring something like that up is nothing more than a straw man.
Okay.
What I think a more accurate way to look at it would be when they turn around and say, you have to have evidence to show that the prosecution is wrong. That, so when they say that we need evidence to prove that there isn't jurisdiction, that is where they're trying to reverse the, or shift the onus or the burden of proof.
Right. Okay.
That is very
That's a
common.
pretty ridiculous thing to say.
Well,
I haven't heard that before, but yeah.
Really? Wow.
Well, not from their mouths in court, but yeah, I for sure I've heard it in the role play. Yeah, probably.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I've got call of shames where they kind of pull that stuff, and they'll say, "Well, Mr. Stevens, it's up to you to prove that the prosecution is wrong by presenting evidence that the laws don't apply." I said,
"Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right. You just kind of jarred my memory. You're right. I have heard that in one of your calls before. They said that exactly, that you have to prove that there isn't jurisdiction, right?
Yeah, you have to prove that the laws don't apply, and that is like douche move number. That's at the top of the list of douche moves that they do. So that's where they try to flip
that's
it.
What they're saying all the time. When you pose a question, when you're just questioning, they try to flip that on you and say that you are now claiming that that the laws don't apply. And I say, but wait, I'm not claiming the laws don't apply. They might apply to me, but could you please show me the evidence that they do? They've tried that on me for sure, lots of times. When I pose that question, they will say, okay, what's the evidence that they don't apply, or that they, yeah.
Well, sure, but even if they wanted to really push this douche move to its limit, all you could, and they say, look, you're going to have to prove that the prosecution has not presented the evidence. It's still pretty easy to do. All you have is a ticket, and say, excuse me, sir, I will plead guilty right now if you can cite where in this document this alleged evidence is. Since you think it's in there, have the prosecution cite it. I'll plead guilty right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've even brought my own plea of guilty. I'll sign it right now. Case closed. So that's how I, would go about doing that. Just cite it and I'll plead guilty right now. If you think the evidence is, and again, you can ask them, a leading question before. So your position is that the prosecution's evidence is listed in the complaint. Great. Cite it. Again, for those who are new, the best that they can do, Jermaine, is to point out that your physical location, which is just repeating the prosecution's argument. So we'll finish up in the next segment. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project, of course, here on the Liberty Radio Network. Talking about prepping for court and objecting properly to this garbage where they try to flip the burden of proof onto you. Yes, welcome back. You're listening to the No State Project. The number is 218-632-9399 with the passcode 2020. You can also Skype me at FrankBrizzo3 for instant message me before. Don't just call. I will connect you during a break. So we're talking with Jermaine and what we do in some of these instances when they try pulling this crap, like flipping the burden of proof on us. This is just a douche move. I mean, there's no other way to really say it. And to have the judge be so adamant, it just shows me, Jermaine, that like I've seen so many times, that the judge is actually actively prosecuting you. He's working with the prosecutor. I mean, didn't that, the way they acted, the way they tag teamed you, I mean, didn't that lead you to believe the same thing?
That's obvious from day one. It was obvious from day one. Every time I go in there and I ask a question, the judge is answering the prosecution. And in the case when I was convicted of this obstruction, the prosecution didn't do anything except for a closing statement. And all he did was cite something from the Constitution and the criminal code. And she did all the prosecution. She even answered for the witness during cross-examination. Yes, let me repeat that. She corrected and then answered for the witness during cross-examination. I was asking him questions about jurisdiction. And I also got the cop to admit that he first, A, believed that the Constitution and code applied to me, and then B, he's never read the Constitution. He said that in the same breath. He said, first, yes, I have personal first-hand knowledge it applies to you because of whatever section and code. And then and then and I asked him, well, have you read the Constitution? He said no, and I said, well, thank you.
Wow.
So yeah, it's no doubt in my mind that yes, they are working together. Like I said, I got the oath of office from Cheryl Lee Daniels. I wanted to try it, see if they actually had an oath of office, and she brought it down. It's stamped and sealed by the Crown Corporation, same as the prosecutor, same as the police officer, etc. So they are working together. That's what you call a conspiracy, when two or more people are working together against you.
Well, it could be collusion. Conspiracy requires an agreement beforehand to do that, which may be a little more difficult.
Thanks for that.
We could definitely show that they were acting in concert and they were colluding together, certainly. But it also, remember that our follow-up to some of these ridiculous statements, when he says he has personal knowledge that the Constitution applies, you got to ask, well, what evidence is that? I mean, did you get a chance to ask him what evidence, if any, do you have personal knowledge of that proves the Constitution applies to me? I mean, if he's going to cite a section of it.
Yeah. That's what he did. He not only, he didn't cite a section of the Constitution, he cited a section of the Traffic Safety Act, which says that, anybody driving without a license is subject to penalty. And I said, okay, well, in order for that Traffic Safety Act to apply to me, wouldn't also the Constitution have to apply to me first, or whatever? It doesn't matter, whatever way you look at it. So my point is when I tried to isolate him and say, okay, that's great. Now, what evidence do you have that applies to me? He obviously couldn't answer that. And when he stood blank and he couldn't answer that, that's when Cheryl Lee Daniels stepped in and started to help him with his response. And then when she was done, I asked him if he's read the Constitution, and he said no. And she still accepted his testimony, and she still prosecuted me. That's why I'm appealing.
Wow, and it should be a slam dunk on appeal. If they're going to apply the rules, we'll have to see. What I like to do is, again, we're using leading questions to bring out the contradiction. Now, this is fairly common, and you'd think that this really shouldn't be. But when they claim that the Constitution is applicable, and they have personal knowledge of that, and you ask for proof, and they mention the Tax Act, or they mention the Traffic Act, whoa, hold on a second. Let me see if I understand your testimony correctly here. You're trying to say that the Traffic Act is somehow proof that the Constitution applies to me. Boy, that ties them up. Because you ask your leading questions. Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding here a bit, sir. Isn't the authority for the Traffic Act the Constitution? Oh, it is. Okay, so then why? So what you're saying is contradictory, right? So the Tax Act is not actually proof the Constitution applies. The Constitution is proof that the Tax Act applies, or the Traffic Act. And so they'll generally agree with you. Now here, it's
and
very.
That's what led me to. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, because it's different because it's in court and they're really going to try to cover their bases and stop the cross-examination, as opposed to when I'm on the phone, they realize they're in trouble, they just want to hang up.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question, have you read the Constitution? Because, because he went straight to the Traffic Act, and I said, well, wait, wouldn't the Constitution have to apply first for that silly act to have any authority either? And, of course, he had never read the Constitution, so I knew he was just out there lying. And then one of the other witnesses, when I asked him about jurisdiction, because he gave his testimony, he said he was one of the officers that came behind them as backup, and he said he came on the scene, and the other officers had me detained on the ground with handcuffs and whatnot. And I asked him, so is your evidence of jurisdiction because you and your buddies had me on the ground handcuffed? And he said yes. and then Cheryl Lee Daniels helped him out. And you know what? They actually redacted that part from the transcript. And so I'm gladly I recorded my own. I always do. So I'm gonna go to Fiverr.com and get somebody to transcribe my audio. And I'm going to submit that as evidence and say, hey, look, there's a discrepancy in the transcripts, and I've got an audio file showing that Cheryl Lee Daniels was helping the witness in cross-examination And also, the things that these people are saying, like they've never read the Constitution, yet they claim it applies to me. This is bullshit, and it should be thrown out.
Yeah, I would point out, just to kind of play devil's advocate, though, that I have never read the rules of the NFL, but it stands to reason that the rules of the NFL apply to NFL players. I don't necessarily have personal knowledge of that, though, so I guess that's kind of the fly in the ointment there. And it's a good point. I've made that point also with a police officer that I thoroughly discredited as a witness, where I introduced their own code to them, that there were not just like a lot of statutes, there were applicable regulations. So with the DMV code, I was able to introduce and show as evidence that there were applicable regulations. He had previously testified that he followed, and my question was, did you follow all the rules and regulations applicable to the motor vehicle code when you made the arrest? He said yes. And so I introduced the Administrative Procedures Act and all the for the DMV, and he had never even heard of it before. So that was a way to do that. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I do appreciate the call. Just hold on a second. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. We're going to get to your calls on the other side of the break, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back. You're listening to the No State Project. Glad to be with you here. This January 6, 2018 show. I guess it's the first Saturday show for 2018. Got a lot more to get to. If you want to join the big show, it's 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. We got some new callers. I appreciate the patience. We have area code 770. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, I have to unmute you.
Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Gumba Lawrence, and I'm calling from Georgia.
You're going to have to help me with the name.
Yeah, my name is Lawrence Gumba, and I'm calling from Georgia.
Yeah, I'm from Long Island. I'm never going to be able to do that, so I apologize for that. What can I help you with?
It's all right.
Is there something else I can call you, Nick?
I'm calling because I have a problem with my brother. He's also on the line. He has been trying to get in touch with you. He had this problem of a speeding ticket. He's from California, and we filed a motion in and did everything which we had to do right. So when he went, his court date was yesterday, January 5th. So he went to court, and he has been doing the role play. So he asked them to prove that the law applies and all of that. And the judge told him that they need no evidence to show him that the laws apply. As if you know, they were doing so. I mean, after everything, the judge forced him out of the court and asked the police to take him out of the court. So, and then they set him a trial on the 22nd of this month of January. So there was no prosecutor, there was no police officer. And he insisted on the judge that he wants to face his accuser. And the judge just told him that he can't talk to him no more and forced him out of the court and set a trial date on the 22nd of this month. So I'm just asking, what do we have to do from here?
Okay, well, I just point out that typically for initial appearances, the accuser is not there. So it's not unusual that the police officer wasn't there. The police officer needs to be there. And if it's California, if the police officer is prosecuting it, he needs to be there for pretrial and he needs to be there for trial. If he's not prosecuting it, then he at least needs to be there for a trial. So has he filed the demur and the discovery request?
Yeah, he did. And when he went in, he asked the first thing he asked the judge if the judge got the demur, and the judge told him that, well, the demur is not granted. So he was like, oh, I'm very happy to hear that. If the demand is not granted, it means that the prosecutor there is enough evidence. It means that there is evidence beyond reasonable doubt, and please, can I see it? And the judge told him that he has the ticket, and that is the evidence. And he was like, he will be more than happy for the judge to cite that on the ticket. And then the judge told him that the law has been applying from the beginning of time. And they have been working like that for many years, and he cannot come and challenge that. That's what the judge said to him in court.
Oh my gosh! It sounds like your brother did pretty good, but he wound. And I have to ask you, if I'm having, I need you to slow down the rate of your speech so it's a little easier for everybody to catch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got it. There's so much to unpack from that, so obviously one of the first ones has to do with objection. California law has only been in existence since 1849, so I don't know why you're bringing up the beginning of time here. And if you think that something from the beginning of time applies, does the prosecution have evidence to prove that? I mean, it's... Okay, so he denied the demur. Now, did your brother also file the request for judicial notice with it?
The request, he did all of that.
Okay, well, see, the request for judicial notice is what we're asking for the judge to take notice of is some of the issues and principles that are in the demur. So it's an effort to make it more difficult for him to just arbitrarily deny it. Because another thing, too, we're bringing out is that to have jurisdiction in an adversarial system, there has to be an antagonistic assertion of rights and evidence to support that, and that's not in the complaint on probably 95 or more % of the time. So it's something we want to get into also. Say, well, sir, before you, okay, you're denying... I moved that you would reconsider that first in light of the fact that we have a motion to take judicial notice. Have you granted that? Have you taken such judicial notice of those issues that were brought up? And he might say, no, I'm denying that. Well, now you've got more things to talk about. Well, look, I can plead guilty today. That's not a problem, but there's a few issues that we need to discuss first. Are you saying this is not an adversarial proceeding? And of course he's going to say, well, of course it's an adversarial proceeding. Well, then why did you deny judicial notice of that? Are you just denying everything that I'm putting forth because you're so friggin' biased against me? You're not even going to read it? But
yeah, Mark, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you short. He's actually here with us, though. Like, he can really explain to you actually how all of it went down. He is here with us.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, what was your name?
Yeah, hi, yeah. Hi, Mark, it's Edwin.
Edwin, now that's a name I can... that's a name I don't have a problem with. Well, Edwin, it sounds like you actually did pretty good, especially if this is your first time out the gate in court, that you did as well as to be expected if the first time. Wow! So, did you get a chance? Did you get a chance to ask the judge anything about the motion for judicial notice?
No, I didn't. I essentially filed a motion to strike dismiss.
Right.
And then I along with that was the Brady request. And then I also served a subpoena for personal production of document and things and to the California Highway Patrol and also to the officer himself. I went to the sheriff's office. I gave it to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff served them and returned the proof of service to court. And on this hearing, it was a pro temp judge, William Abramson, in Plumas County, California. And the judge was very upset that at some point the judge flipped everything around, just like your show today has been. And the judge was saying that I have to be the one to prove that the court doesn't have jurisdiction. And so I've been following your show. Your show is almost like a prophecy. because it's kind of hitting back on some of the things that happened yesterday. This was actually yesterday.
Oh.
And so the request for judicial notice, I didn't know how to, go about that, but we have a hearing coming up about just over 2 weeks from today. And the judge was, like Lauren said, the judge was saying that I'm requesting something that California has about 52 counties, and that they've been applying that law and their system to everybody, and I'm the only one who wants to change the whole system.
Yeah. Okay. Well, well, hold on just a moment, Ed. We're going up against the break, so I got to put you on hold. Wow. So as if just because you're the only one making the challenge, that somehow defeats it. Wow. Nice logic. Well, we'll discuss this on the other side of this quick break. So, yeah, don't go away. We'll be back in a moment here on the No State Project. This is a new one, so we'll address that in a moment. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. We're just talking briefly about judicial notice, and so there was a question about that in the chat. And judicial notice is typically of adjudicated facts that are not subject to question if you provide the documentation or, it's something that's pretty obvious. It is not absolute. So I think it's Rule 201 of the Federal Rules of Evidence and where that has been adopted. In California, it's a little different, though. It's not just adjudicated facts under the Evidence Code. It's either 451 or Section 455. I think it's 451. They also take judicial notice of the law, what the law actually says, and and if there's a court precedent. And so one that they love to ignore is in the Cal Farm. I think it was Cal Farm versus Duke Majan, and I think he was a former governor of California. And there was an exception carved out for the Anti-Injunctive Tax Act, and that if it was violating the Constitution, then the Anti-Injunctive Tax Act does not strip the courts of jurisdiction to hear a tax case. They love to ignore that, and I mean completely ignore that. So you can ask them to take judicial notice of that, and they'll deny it. They won't do it because it's just too, why actually hold these tax criminals to any responsibility whatsoever? No, what they do is they commit felony after felony after felony and just refuse to take notice. That's why if you look at the back of the first book, Adventures in Legal Land, there's 3 scumbag judges that are being represented there. That it was like the 3 monkey defense. They will not address it, period. They just deny it because they know your chances of getting a review on a petition for further prohibition are pretty slim. So anyway, that's the distinction. I don't know of any other place like California that has such expansive judicial notice to where it's not just adjudicated facts. But California is where it is, and that's why if you order the motion template from me, and you're in California, you get that extra document because it's only applicable in places like California that I know of. So if there are any other places that have that in their rule of evidence, then let me know, and I'll make sure that I change things and edit another motion for judicial notice for that particular state. But I want to welcome back Edwin, who's battling these people in California.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't write down where I cut you off for the break. I apologize for that. I think you were saying that you do have a hearing coming up on the 22nd.
Yes, I do have a hearing coming up.
I know. Okay, so what I want to address here is because the judge was getting upset with you, saying that they've always done it this way, and that you're the first person asking them to actually prove the prosecution's claim. And so I kind of mentioned on the chat, you're the only one challenging my assertion that 1 + 1 = 2. So that means I don't have to prove it to you. Can the guy actually act any younger? What is he, 15 years old? Was he 10? What a stupid thing. You're the only one challenging me, so I don't have to prove anything to you. I'm telling Mom. Come on. This man has a Juris Doctorate degree, and he actually is going to try to use something like that on you? obviously the way to respond to something like that is objection. Whether I'm the only one making the challenge is completely irrelevant. They still had the burden of proof, right? Then as long as the prosecution has the burden of proof, it doesn't matter how many people are challenging them. They have to meet their burden. I can't believe I almost forgot that. That's a stupid-ass thing. I think, Edwin, if we were given a prize for the stupidest thing a judge said this month, I think you would win here in the first week of 2018, and I don't think we'd get another contender till next month, at least next month.
Well, I asked the judge that he should dismiss the ticket based on my motion and asking for his grounds for denying it, and he said, well, I'm looking at the ticket here. It's evidence. And I said, can you cite it from the ticket because I don't see it? And he said, okay, you have a driver's license. And I said, objection. That is not why we are here. We are not here to talk if I have a driver's license or not. Why are we here? And the judge said, this is an arraignment. And I said, okay. So then the judge said, you need to plead guilty or not guilty here today. And I had the unsigned plea of guilt, and I showed it to the judge. I gave it to the sheriff who was in court, and I said, I have an unsigned plea of guilt here. If they can show evidence of the elements of jurisdiction, I'm going to sign it. It needs only my signature. It is dated. I'll sign it, and I'll pay the fine and walk out of court. And the judge said, that's when he used that statement about a long time ago and said it's not going to happen. And I asked the judge, are you carrying on a case without evidence? Can I come to this court and file a case against you without evidence? And you would listen to it? And he said, yeah. And I said, is that what the U.S. Constitution says? And he said, yes. And I said, objection. Can you cite it? And to my amazement, the judge said the 5th and the 14th Amendment. And I said, objection. But at that point, the judge was getting upset and warned me not to use the word objection again, ever, in his courtroom.
He doesn't want you objecting. So one of the principal means that we have available of defending ourselves, one of the biggest tools in the chest, is the word objection. And he says, don't ever, you're going to have to file, well, he's a pro tem, and so he probably won't be back. And that would be, it's still, I think, would be worth it to file a motion to recuse the judge. I think I forget what number it is. You can have him recused just by filing a document. It doesn't mean you can have every single judge recused. You can only do it the one time. By a 716 motion or something like that. I did a show about that. So I would definitely move to, and I have a motion template for that I can send you. Contact me off air, and I can send it to you after the show. You've got plenty of statements that you can use against him to show that he's covering for the prosecution's lack of evidence. It's fairly obvious that the driver's license is not the prosecution's evidence proving that the Constitution applies to you. That's ridiculous. And that's why one of the things we do in the role playing is stay more focused, because when he said that, the proper way, I believe, the more effective way to have addressed that garbage was objection. Is it your position that the driver's license is actually evidence proving the Constitution applies to me? And if he says yes, then you say, well, objection, you're going to have to explain exactly how that proves the Constitution applies to me. And I will plead guilty right now.
Okay.
Okay, so that again, we're always keeping the burden on the accuser, whoever's making these ridiculous statements, to verify that what they're saying is actually true. So if he believes that the driver's license that was on a threat, duress, and coercion that was compulsory, if he believes that proves the Constitution applies to you and not the other way around, he's going to have to show show the prosecution's evidence in the record to prove that that's actually true. Because if he starts doing that on his own, he's making determinations on evidence that's not in the record that you can't defend against, and that is the very definition of a due process violation. Okay.
Okay. So how do I contact you off air?
You just have to. Well, you should have my email address already since you got the documents already. But it's markstevens@mail.com. Okay.
Oh, markstevens@mail.com. Okay, I think I sent you an email this morning.
Yeah, you just sent me a reminder email that you were on the show today, and that I need to send you that template, and I'll get that over to you after the show.
Yeah, I wanted to schedule a private phone consultation, and I'm about to make the payments now online on your website.
I can't do that today. I think I may have mentioned that. I'll be back home Sunday night, tomorrow night, and so we can schedule that for Monday morning, Monday afternoon. Either one works for me. All right, so I do appreciate the call. I got to let you go. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. We're at the top of the hour break. We'll be going into the third hour of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network. So we'll be back with your calls in just a few moments. Actually, I think we're going to keep Edwin on for another segment, so look forward to that. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the third of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network. Glad to be with you this January 6, 2008 edition of the No State Project, live from the Fortified Compound in California. I really like Mesa so much. I was joking around with a friend yesterday. He says, "Why do you go to California so much?" I guess I'm just not challenged by Mesa traffic anymore. I need even more traffic. So, anyway, I'm glad to be here. We'll be live for the Wednesday edition of the big show. So whoever we're not able to get today, feel free to call into the Wednesday broadcast. All the call-in number, the Skype line, everything is all exactly the same. The big difference is we don't have any interruptions. Well, unless it's a tech issue. But I've been pretty damn good at not having those lately. So, we don't have a break in the conversation. So, definitely join us for the Wednesday broadcast. If you're not subbed on YouTube, you won't get the notifications, but definitely check out. I wanted to hit 10K, but I'm a little short. Hopefully you guys can help me out. We can hit 10K subs in the next couple of weeks. So we don't need too much to get there, so that would be pretty cool. Anyway, I want to bring back Edwin, who is on the line from Georgia, but he's got a case in California that he's having some issues with. Yeah. So welcome back, my friend. What do we need to do? What do you think as far as the role playing or the tactics? Where are you weak? Where do you think we should you need some help so that you could be as prepped as you can be when you go in on the 22nd?
Yeah, the help that I need is the judge. He was a pro temp judge. The judge did schedule a court trial just about 2 weeks after yesterday, and I was just confused if that is the right process or if there was supposed to be a pre-trial before a trial, but the judge did set that up, even when I objected. And so I need help on the filing a motion to have the judge recuse, and I did record the hearing, though. I had a recorder on me, so I have a complete recording of the hearing.
You probably can't use that because they probably will hold you in contempt and put you in jail for that. So I would not make that, public knowledge or let the court know, because they're pretty strict about that out there. I don't see anything wrong with it, and I think we need to be able to hold these criminals accountable because they are. And people need to see and hear with their own eyes what these people really are like. So you're absolutely right that there is supposed to be a pretrial conference before that, unless they're considering this just a minor criminal infraction. In that case, they may, I'd have to check the rules, they may have discovery that is done just immediately prior to the so-called trial. And you've already got the Brady request in, and you went and did a, summonsed. You had a subpoena issued for certain records already, so they should have that. I would still go on record and say that the most important information that they are supposed to give you is the Brady information. They have to let you know whether or not their witness has personal first-hand knowledge that a written instrument from 1879 applies to you and creates obligations on you. Just because you're physically in California. So that's what I would focus, if you do have a pretrial or if you have an objection and you're able to discuss these matters before the trial, bring up the lack of Brady material from the prosecution. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so bring up the lack of Brady material.
Yeah, I would also file to reconsider the denial of or the overruling of the demur. And and also the denial of the motion to take judicial notice, because the judge, he's saying it's not an adversarial proceeding, and the fact that it's not an adversarial proceeding is enough to show that it's not fair, and that being that it's not fair, it's a denial of the due process. I obviously.
So when the judge said that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, when the judge said what?
When the judge argued with me, I know he's lying, but when he argued and said that, yes, the prosecutor has the right to file a case without evidence, and I can do it too, and I asked the judge to cite it in the U.S. Constitution, and the judge said the 5th and 14th Amendments. How was I supposed to respond in that case? Because I did object it, and
well, you want him to cite it.
You want violation, but
you want him to cite it. He says, "Sir, please be perfectly clear for the reviewing court if this has to be appealed." You're telling me that the due process clauses actually say that that the prosecution can make a claim with no evidence. Can you cite that? Where does it say that? Where are you getting that from? I don't think I may not be a lawyer, but I don't think that's true. You're going to have to prove that on the record. It's no different than when they say that the evidence is in the ticket. Okay, like they pulled with Eric in California, who was battling against someone in Kankakee, Massachusetts, when they said that the evidence was in the police report, it was on the ticket. Cite it. Anytime someone says and gets specific there, then you want them to actually show it. So if they say the 5th and 14th Amendment, sir, you're going to have to cite that. You're going to have to show me where the due process clause actually says that they can make a claim without evidence. Wouldn't that be prosecutorial misconduct?
It would be.
Wow, that is staggeringly wrong, and it's monumentally stupid for them to say something like that. And the only reason why they can get away with it is because they have a prison system, and he's probably not going to be held. Even if he is reversed, it's not going to cost him a dime. So he doesn't have to worry about some schmuck up on the appellate court, someone in the superior court who's going to reverse him. He doesn't have to give a damn. Having a prison system means never having to give a damn that you're shown to be wrong. Okay? So we only got a minute or two left in the segment, and so what I would also recommend is that you do some role playing.
I just purchased 2 hours of airtime phone consultation with you, and I don't know if you want to schedule it for Monday, like you said.
Well, yes. Let's take care of that off air, and so there's less for me to have to actually edit out of the show when I post it. But that's something that we don't need to discuss on the air. I'll get with you obviously after the show,
okay,
and we'll get that scheduled. That'll certainly go a long way to making sure that you're prepped for the 22nd.
Please, yes.
Oh, well, excellent. Well, I'm glad that we got a chance to talk on the air and start fleshing some of this out. And so other people that are listening know what to expect and know that a lot of what we say, if not all of what we're saying on the show, particularly today, they don't have to feel surprised when they go into court like you did, because I think you mentioned the word prophecy before. we're pretty good at predicting what they're going to say because they're going by the same program. So whether you're in California or you're in Canberra or you're in Wales, they usually say the same stupid things. And the role playing is certainly, and we'll do that on the phone when we do the consult. We'll go through and cover the basic tactics, and we'll do some role playing and make sure that you understand the principles. And we'll do a few rounds so that when you do go back on the 22nd, you won't feel any kind of, you won't be overwhelmed, and you'll be a lot more focused. You did pretty good. But you can definitely refine it and stay more focused and really keep the burden of proof on the accusers where it belongs. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. We're pretty much out of time for this segment, so I'm gonna let you go. Again, we'll be in touch after the show. So I appreciate the call, Edwin in Georgia, who is battling the crooks out here in California. And that's not to say, like I mentioned in the last show, California's no worse than New Jersey or New Hampshire or Calgary, for that matter. They're all criminals. They're all bad. But there is definitely a scale to how bad they can be individually. We'll be back in just a moment, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm your host, Mark Stevens, author of Government Indicted, which has a complete model for how to effectively defend yourself, which is something that Edwin and others are doing. Edwin's doing it here in California, so hopefully we'll get posted where here in California on the 22nd, so maybe we can get a media rep, which is what we spoke about on the last broadcast. We need to really start doing it. It's great to have the support in the chat, but if we can also start doing what we were doing before, is having role play, is having a media rep go into the court, maybe this particular judge that he saw and hopefully doesn't have to see again, would be on better behavior. I mean, what crap spewing that the driver's license evidence proving the Constitution applies to you. Give me a break. So if I never had a driver's license, you wouldn't tax me, you wouldn't do it, you have no jurisdiction to do anything? Oh, what the hell's wrong? Oh, the stupid things that spew out of the mouth of criminals when they are confronted with the Socratic method. Leading questions, which means that you're putting the information you're eliciting in the question. So, hopefully, we'll get that information, and we have more people that are in the area to appear as media reps. Want to get another new caller. We have area code, very, very patient. We have area code 209. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Mark. This is Mike from Northern California. Hello?
Another one from Northern California. What do we got going on today, Mike?
Well, I just wanted to comment on what Jermaine started and has kind of been the thread through the show here about the role playing and things of that nature.
All right.
And simply the comment I had was that such as the questions that you've put forth, such as softball, medium ball, hardball questions and such. As far as the role-playing goes, and this is simply my opinion, but in the chats or the role-playing things, at least one or two different chat rooms, I think, should exist. One for okay, here's how you get started, and here's how you finish it up. It's in my opinion, it's it's like you take a first grader and you throw them into a calculus class, and they don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, it's a good idea. We already have a couple of different chats now. So the main chat is more for people to, when they're new, is to introduce themselves and let everybody know that, hey, so it's the No State Project Skype chat, heard about it on the show, Mark gave me the link, blah, blah, he put me in, I'm prepping for court, let's say on the 22nd there in California, and I need to do some role-playing, when can we set that up? And then what generally happens is, if you're not doing it on, let's say on a Saturday or a Wednesday, then everyone there's either one going on or they can get one scheduled. So who's ever active on the chat then can say, hey, we'll bring you into this room and then we'll do a call and you can do it that way. So if you're a newbie, they're going to know that. So they're not going to pull you into a chat that's going to be, it's not going to be like, people, when they're doing it with people who are experienced already.
Well, I did get into one quite a while back, and I got shut down pretty hard, and I won't say by who, but in any case, it was somewhat disturbing, and I thought, okay, how's this going to work now? Maybe we ought to, bring them along a little bit slowly. Just my opinion, my thoughts.
We've discussed, and I'm going to spend more time moderating the chat. I know I need to do that. It was a big mistake to just put the link on the website. We learn from that. We move on. We'll take care of it. I'm going to moderate it better, and the people that are coming in are generally going to be people who are going through me first. So most of them are going to, it's probably going to cut down on how many people enter, which is fine. Because it started out, everyone in the chat was somebody that I was working with. It wasn't just a matter, except for maybe a handful of people that were doing it because they were listening to the broadcast. So I would say 9 times out of 10, it was people that were coming in directly from me because they ordered something or they contacted me because they needed the help, and I put them in. So if we look at the 440 people that are in there right now, I would say 175 or 180 were put in by me. I'm taking a guess of that. I don't know. So hopefully, these two fixes will result in a much more productive chat, the way it has been and the way it tended to be.
Okay. You are, or I should say I am, one of the people that you have been working with, and I don't think I've gotten directly into your Skype chat, but, maybe a different one.
Well, is it called No State Project with the red anarchy A?
I think I got into Joe's out of Hawaii.
Okay, well, that from what I heard, that one was pretty good. I think... Well, I have heard that sometimes they're a little tougher on newbies than they should be, which is, I would discourage. I want people to be treated the way we all want to be treated. I think that courtesy and that should be extended to everybody. I do that when I'm talking to the bureaucrats. So we should, with people who are looking to defend themselves, we should extend them that courtesy, of course. But you do want to move things quickly and respect people's time. So I understand. I'll do it on the show too. So what I'm getting to, Mike, is asking certain questions just to kind of gauge where somebody is. So the guys in the group can then understand. Okay, this is the level this guy's at. This is where we need to focus, and this is what we, how we should do it. But it shouldn't be, people walk away feeling beat up. It should be intellectually stimulating, of course, because especially it's new. But you shouldn't walk away feeling, you should walk away from it thinking, okay, I have a lot of work to do, and we accomplished a lot on that, and I still need, and so this is where this is my weakness, and this is what I need to focus on. We are out of time for this segment, so just hold tight, Mike. We'll be back in just a few moments. I'm running out of time here, so I'm probably not going to get to everyone. I'm going to do my best, though, and I know a lot of people have been patient. So just hold tight. We'll do what we can, and so we'll be back. Don't go away. Welcome back to the No State Project. Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that January 9th is Jimmy Page's birthday, but I completely forgot that, being that this is January 6th, that another very influential guitar player and songwriter was actually born on January 6th, this in 1946, and that is, of course, Roger Keith, or Syd Barrett, who was a founding member and named the band, and principal songwriter, and named the band Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, another band that had a huge impact on me. More so because I love David Gilmour, but hey, there wouldn't have been a Pink Floyd if it wasn't for Syd Barrett. So, in recognizing that this is Syd Barrett's birthday, January 6th, 1946. So I guess he would have been 71. Shine on, you crazy diamond. Well, Mike dropped off, which is unfortunate, but we do have a lot of calls, and I did appreciate his patience. I need to get to. We've got. Oh, I actually mentioned him earlier. I didn't realize he was on the line, but we've got Eric in California, and I am hoping we got some good news. Eric, welcome back to the big show.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me okay?
I can. You got good news for us?
I do. I had a traffic ticket out here in California for driving with a cell phone, and I got that dismissed last week, but might have some helpful information for other guys that are going through the same thing. Here.
Yeah, it sounds like you're on your cell phone right now. And I think we lost him. Damn it. Okay, that is unfortunate. But it did sound like he was on his cell phone. I'm glad that he got the ticket thrown out. So we're going to see if we can get him back. We're going to bring... I dropped Jermaine a little bit early, apparently, so I'm going to bring Jermaine back. Jermaine, welcome back to the show. So what was the question that you had for me that everybody wanted you to ask?
Yeah. Did you really bring a box of dirt to court?
Did I really bring a box of dirt to court? Oh. I don't think that was me.
No? Okay, yeah, it was just a rumor that was going around that you brought a box to court to try to show them how ridiculous their, claim of the state being, some piece of dirt somewhere, right?
No, I think the craziest thing I did that way, it was not even in court, when some people at the Department of Revenue in Phoenix, the State Department of Revenue, told me that he did like what the judge did to you and shook the Bible, the code in front of him. This is, and I took the book. I said, can I see that book for a second? They said, sure. I took the book and I actually threw it out the door and shut it. And I said, does it apply now? But no, if somebody brought a box of dirt to court, it's the first I'm hearing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, some people were just hounding me to ask you that question before I got off the air, so I thought I'd ask you.
Is this something that somebody was? Is there some kind of story going around that somebody brought a box of dirt to the court to make such a to defeat their claim that they represent? Apparently it was you brought a box of dirt. I guess that's why it's a rumor, right? Brought a box of dirt that might have been from Kentucky, right, to court. And then you would you'd be inside the box and say, okay, I'm in Kentucky now. Does your jurisdiction apply to me? Sort of thing. I don't know exactly how it went verbatim, but that's kind of the idea that they were conveying to me. Yeah, I don't even remember relating a story like that. But hey, we've done a lot of shows here, apparently, because I am still, 16 gigs over my limit. On my website, so yeah, I may have spoken about. I have absolutely no recollection of that. So I'd be certain that it was not me who did that.
Okay, all right. We just thought we wanted to clarify that, but that's cool anyways, Mark. I'm sure you got other callers, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, it's interesting, but not something I would do. There's a lot of stuff that once you start probing and asking questions, is it true? It's just like people say, they're going on these videos. Well, did the guy ever follow up with evidence? Well, a lot of statutes, sure. Never followed up with evidence proving that he actually recused every single judge in, I can't remember which county it was in California. No, and then somebody recently said that he just puts in the motion that he's there by special appearance in propria persona, and he's gotten 2 felony charges thrown out. And he says, the only evidence I have is the fact I'm not sitting in prison. And I'm like, well, yeah, I can say that I got 700 felony complaints thrown out by just saying that I'm Mark Stevens. And the only evidence I have of that is the fact that I'm still sitting here doing the broadcast. I mean, come on. So... it's maybe they got me confused with somebody else. I don't know, but okay.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
All right, take care, Mark.
Hey, good talk with you again. All right, we'll see. We'll do what we can to. We have, it looks like a Skype caller. You've been on hold for a while. Yeah, that's it. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Mark, this is Imran. How's it going?
Imran, it has been a while. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, I'm actually calling you from just a few miles away, or for your out-of-country listeners, a few kilometers away. So, yeah, I just haven't talked to you in a while. I guess everybody's up in arms about this video link I put in the website or the chat room or whatever, but just want to say hi. I was wondering, did you get a chance to talk about this Mesa police officer that gunned down this father of like 3 in the hotel room? Sure, it's like close to your house.
I've mentioned it, and I did.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did, because I released the video, and it's horrifying. And I did put some parts of that video in a video I did for the show, but I haven't dedicated like a whole segment to it, which is unfortunate. It horrible. The idea that somebody could, my gosh. I know that they were called for what they thought may have been an act of, somebody waving a real gun.
I mean, the thing about that is they were saying that, like, first of all, the video was captured, but I heard it wasn't shown to the jury. But, like, this individual who got shot and killed was actually doing what the officer was telling him to do.
Right. Yeah, it's brought to light more of this situation where the people, where they give conflicting orders, and that's why I think a lot of people, myself, at least for myself, and I agree with this. If I am in a situation like that, I am going to drop to the ground with my hands in front of me, okay, and I'm not moving. If I have to, I'll friggin' low crawl, but I am not go. I mean, that's the position that I'm taking, and hope for the best. That that's enough. That my compliance to them is enough to satisfy their lust. And that they don't need, they didn't leave the house that day with the need to kill somebody like this animal apparently did. I mean, he even had on his service M16, on his M16, he said, it says you're effed on it. It just shows, depending on where you are, there's no end to what these cops can do. They won't be held accountable. I know there's supposed to be a wrongful death action that's going to be filed, and so maybe something will be done there. But that remains to be seen. So hold on one moment. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project. We're up against another break here. So remember, if we're not able to get you today, call into the Wednesday broadcast because we don't have issues like this right here. And maybe we can get Eric back because he's been on the line a long time waiting. So, and I want to hear more of if he's got any good news for us. So we'll be back. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No Stay Project. Unfortunately, we are in the last segment of the big show for today, and since I'm out of town, I don't really have the time after the show. So whoever I miss is going to have to get with us on the Wednesday broadcast. And also, you can just get with me off air. Email me a question or comment at markstevens@mail.com. So I want to bring back Imran. Imran, yeah, so I got to ask you though. You're saying that the jury was not able to see that video?
That's what I heard on the news. It's hearsay, but that's what I remember on the news, and it just goes to show you that the games they play and all the other types of evil things that they do to always win in their favor. So, for example, like you were mentioning something about a Bible in the courtroom. So, like, for example, if you're a supposed defendant and they talk about the Bible, they're trying to show that they're God-fearing people. But then if you mention something in the Bible that shows them that they're liars and hypocrites, then all of a sudden, hey, it's like, oh, well, this is a secular courtroom. God doesn't belong in this courtroom. So, I mean, it's just hypocrisy in games and all the other things that they do to always put themselves in a winning position. So
well, that's not what we meant by it. We were just saying that the code is their Bible. That's what we meant by that. But, I do want to point out that when Michael Slager, the South Carolina cop, when he shot Walter Scott, that was all on video also, and it was he planted evidence. He tried to cover up the fact that he murdered somebody. That was on video. He was not convicted. So even when they show these brain dead juries the video, they still do not convict. So whether in Mesa they showed the video or not probably wouldn't have swayed the jury's mind. I tell you, I have a personal thing here. I am so sick to death of people giving police officers a free pass. It doesn't matter how many times. This guy, but the only reason why Slager is going to prison is because he pled guilty. Not because he was so the feds. So in South Carolina, he was they didn't convict him there. So the feds were taking a shot at it, and so instead of going through trial again, he pled guilty. But just like I mentioned, Sergeant Watts. I want everyone just check this out. I'll put it in the show notes. I have to remember to do this. Sergeant Watts in Chicago. There isn't very much on this as far as video, but there's a lot. There are some articles about it. He is going to prison for planting large amounts of drugs on black men who refuse to pay him protection money, extortion. Large amounts of, 15 innocent people have already been released. And it sickens me that no matter how many times these cops are shown to be vile thugs, it doesn't matter because the average idiot who gets on a jury will not convict a cop because they put these animals on such a pedestal. It is sickening. They are just men and women. They're no different than us. They're given a position of absolute irresponsible domination over us. And to think that someone like that is incapable of doing something wrong, I can't for the life of me think that every single person who gets on a jury is a brain-dead Republican that is so blinded by their idea of law and order that they will watch a cop on HD video shooting a man in the back and still refuse to convict him. This is no different, it seems, that when you go back 150 years ago, you wouldn't get people in the South who would convict someone of killing someone who was black. So if a white person was shown and was guilty beyond any measure of participating in the murder of someone who was black and lynched them, for example, okay, an all-white jury wouldn't convict. I see the same thing when we get these cops on, when the one time out of 1,000 they're actually put on trial. That one time they can't be convicted, they still can't convict them.
Right. Mark, so your show Wednesday, what time will it be?
It is at 4 o'clock Arizona time.
Okay, and is this going to be a regular occurrence from now on? Wednesday and Saturday?
You see, we're off to a good start. I've been doing the Wednesday broadcasts pretty much every Wednesday for 46 episodes now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And do you have other callers waiting right now?
Let me see. I probably do. I can try to get Eric back on, and okay. We have Kerry. So I'm sorry. This is something. It's I don't know how anybody could not get upset when they see people getting away with murdering other people. And I'm not saying it's necessarily racial. I think it's a class thing. I think it has to do with they're higher up on the political pecking order, and that's why they get away with it. Not because it's necessarily systemic racism, but it's because they are a ruling class and they're going to protect their henchmen.
All right. Well, have a good one, Mark.
All right, I appreciate it, Imran. It's been a while, but yeah, I appreciate the call. Get me all wound up, and then he just goes and leaves. But it has been a while. We're going to see if we get. Do we have Eric back on the line?
All right, I'm here, Mark.
All right, why don't we got about 2 minutes left. So Kerry, who's on hold, I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to get to you today, but get with me on email and we'll square away with whatever questions or concerns you have. So what did you have for us, Eric?
Traffic ticket was dismissed because the cop didn't show up, but it gets funnier than that. He apparently wasn't smart enough to answer the discovery request that we had sent over. And then I did send over Eddie Craig's 7 interrogatories as well, which he couldn't answer. Just the highlights were that the manager of the police station that I talked to said that the cops aren't used to getting discovery requests like that, and they can't answer the mumbo-jumbo of the law. So it's pretty funny. I'm now dealing with the city attorney for the cops' illegal stop, basically. But during the first arraignment with the traffic ticket, the commissioner said he denied it, and I said, on what grounds? He goes, I don't have to give any grounds.
You arrogant prick.
So corruption through the whole thing.
Yeah.
There'll be more from this. And
yeah.
I'm filing a claim against the city's insurance.
Good. Keep in touch with me, but keep me in the loop on that. Because, what's interesting, though, before we're totally out of time, is that police are law enforcement, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so this guy at the police department told you that they don't get into the mumbo jumbo of the law, that they actually are charged with enforcing. Oh man,
100%. She hung up on me, so I sent off a nice little email to the city attorney, which I'll talk to this week, and I'm filing a nice big claim. And if it comes down to it, I'm going to sue this cop for the illegal stop as well.
Well, definitely take it from the whole way through. Oh, sure, but definitely keep it on the insurance side, because he's on the hook for the insurance. And this way, if you do it that way, you have a much better chance of getting. If you have to go to court, you have a much better chance of getting into discovery, and that's going to be the only way you'd be able to call the prosecutor and the judge as a witness.
Why would I call them as witnesses?
To support your claim that the police officer filed a false claim against you?
Gotcha. Yeah, and then real quick, another funny thing going back to Boston, as I'm pleading this out, the probation, they're worried about me because I'm out of state. They don't know how they're going to handle the situation. And Judge Ernest, who was a delight, he goes, excuse me, you live in California? You've been traveling here for all these court appearances? I'm like, did you not read any of my motions that you denied? Are you kidding me?
So now you've got proof right from the horse's mouth he did not read your motions.
Exactly. I still pled it out, but...
Wow. Well, I would still file a claim. File a claim against their insurance, too. You might as well. So, okay. Yeah, definitely keep me in the loop on that. We're totally out of time. So, I got to mute you up. My name is Mark Stevens. You've been listening to the January 6th edition of the No State Project right here on LRN.FM. Again, we're completely out of time. We'll be live on Wednesday. Remember, Libertopia, libertopia.org is May 3rd through May 6th. So go to libertopia.org today and sign up. And, hey, until next time, salud.